Now, where was I? They're parallel. What's the slope of the black one? Good old first block math class. Right. What can you see about the slopes? They're the same. So, that tells us parallel lines have the same slope. How often will this happen? Always. Any two lines, if they are parallel, they have the same slope. If any two lines have the same slope, then they are parallel. Does everybody understand? It works both ways. Everybody good? Okay. Now, to do perpendicular, first of all, who remembers, if anyone, what perpendicular means? They cross at what degree? 90. Anytime two angles or two lines cross at 90 degrees, they are said to be perpendicular to each other. Okay? Now, to illustrate this for you guys, I have to do two sets of lines. Okay? The first one is really easy. Put a line at x equals -5 and a line at y equals 5. But I need whole lines there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's one line. And the other line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is right there. Now, everyone agrees those are crossing at 90 degrees, yes? Right? Okay. I'm going to call this guy line 1. I'm going to call this guy line 2. Now, I know that you already know that line 1 has an undefined slope, doesn't it? Because it's vertical. But I need for you to explain this concept to you. I need you guys to actually write the slope out as rise over run. So, choose any 2 points and tell me what the rise is. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Everyone agree? So my line 1, the slope, and there's an m that's going to show up there in a minute. The m of line 1 is a rise of 6 over a run of 0, yes? Everybody cool? Now, put a dot at 0, 5. Everybody cool? And -6, 5. Meaning line 2, we are looking at this part. Everybody cool with that? Okay. What would the slope of line 2 be? Officially. What's its rise? 0. And what's its run? The way I've drawn it. 6. Now, all of you right away should be able to see part of what makes slopes perpendicular. What has happened to the two numbers? And we have a math word for that. What is it? They've reciprocated, right? So, point 1, perpendicular lines have reciprocal slopes. That was not spelt right. Put too many A's. Reciprocal slopes. Everybody sees that, right? It's quite plain. As soon as you see it written down, you can see that they have reciprocated, right? Okay, now, I told you that this takes 2 sets of lines to do it properly, yeah? So, next line, we're going to put a dot at x equals 6 and y equals -4. So let's do that one. And let's connect the dot. Oops. My line will show up in a sec. Now, put another dot at x equals 2 and y equals 3. And then connect that line. Now, I already know what's going to happen here. So, but I need you guys to see that too. The first line, line 3, this one, line 3, has what for a slope? I went up, how far? 4, and I went that way, how far? 6. So that guy's slope is 2/3. Agreed? Everyone agree? Okay. Now, what is line 4's slope? I went down 3 and over 2. So it's negative 3/2, correct? Now, what do you notice about the blue ink that is similar to the red ink? Carlin? They did reciprocate, yes. But something else happened as well. One became negative, right? Now, this angle right here is 90 degrees. So the second part of perpendicular slopes, we know they're reciprocated, but one is positive and one is negatively sloped. Everybody cool? And that, just like parallel, works both ways. If you find two slopes that are negative reciprocals, you know those are going to cross at 90 degrees. If you find if you see two angles that are at 90 degrees, then you know they have negative reciprocal slopes. Everybody cool? Okay. It's mostly helpful in physics and stuff, but it's something that we use in math as well. So what do we know about parallel lines? They have the same slope. Right? And of course, we know the reverse of that. If two lines are parallel, they have the same slope. If two lines have the same slope, they're parallel. Right? Okay, so I'm going to use a symbol here. M of line 1 equals the M of line 2 if, if line 1 is parallel to line 2. That's what that symbol means. Everybody cool? And of course, that works both ways, right? If line 1 is parallel to line 2, then their slopes are equal. Everybody good? Perpendicular lines have negative reciprocal slopes. So, the M of line 1 equals negative 1 over the M of line 2. Because the M of line 1 would be over 1, right? And that is true if line 1 is perpendicular. And the symbols are going to show up there in a sec. Perpendicular to line 2. Is everybody good? If you're not following the concept, all you have to remember is whatever rise over run of the first one is, if they're perpendicular, you flip it and put a negative sign in front of it. That's it. Okay? Now that won't help you get an A, but it'll help you get through. Do you understand what I am saying? All right. So, here is line 1. Its slope is 2/3. What is the perpendicular line? What's the perpendicular line? Negative 3 over 2. You flip it and change the sign. Negative 7 is my slope. What's my perpendicular slope? No. 1 over 7. Flip it and change the sign. 4 parallel. What's his slope? Parallel. 4. Now here's where it gets a little bit tricky. Would this slope be allowed? Wake up. I know you can do it. Would that be allowed? Why? Because 12 divided by 3 is 4, right? Would this be allowed? Ten divided by 2.5. Is that 4? So would it be allowed? Great. 36 over 9? 100 over 25? All those are the same thing. Everybody good? Okay. Negative 5/11. What's its perpendicular slope? (11 over 5), because you flip it, and since it was already negative, if you make something negative, it becomes positive. This one's a little tricky. If a slope is 0, what's its perpendicular slope? Which slope is 0, flat or vertical? Flat. So what's perpendicular to flat? Vertical. And what slope does a vertical line have? We just did it on this page. You did a flat line, then you did a vertical line. No. It's a number over 0, which would be? Are you allowed to put 1 over 0? I've said it like 1,000 times. Somebody in the room knows this answer. A vertical line has what slope? It's written on this page. I'm almost positive I wrote it on this page. If I didn't, I didn't. But it has been written many, many times. Yes, Haley. Undefined. Well done, Haley. And if a slope is undefined, then what's its perpendicular slope? 0. Yay! Is everybody cool with the concept? Again, if you can't wrap your mind around it, all you got to do, remember, perpendicular slopes, you flip them and change the sign. Page 192. Decide if ST is parallel, perpendicular, or neither. What determines if it's parallel, perpendicular, or neither? What is the one factor that will decide if something is parallel, perpendicular, or neither? Slope. Excellent. So I have to decide if the slope of ST equals the slope of AB, or if it equals the negative 1 over the slope of AB, or I have to decide if they don't equal each other in any way. So how am I going to do that? What knowledge do I have with those 4 points that will allow me to prove one of these things? What can I do when I have S and T and A and B. You can do y2 minus y1 and check the slopes, right? If they're parallel, what will those slopes be? The same. If they're perpendicular, what will they be? Negative reciprocals. If they are neither, what will they be? Totally different, right? Let's go then. What is the slope of ST? Who decides which is y2 and y1? You do. Go. I'm going to wait a second so everybody who is going to start starts, and you don't just copy me so you can do it yourself. If you're not going to do it, wait a second and copy me. Now, no matter how you did your y2s and y1s, your slope of ST should be 2. How do those two slopes compare? They are perpendicular. So ST is perpendicular to AB. Now, somebody always says, but Mr. Myers, that's a 2 and that's a 1/2. What is 2 really? 2 over 1. So when you flip it, you get 1 over 2, and when you make a positive, the opposite, it becomes negative. Is everybody good? Now I'm going to take a second here to say something to you. What is the one thing that we have used on every single page of this unit? What is the one mathematical concept that is repeated 3 times in 3 lessons for this unit? Starts with an S, ends with an E, has LOP in the middle of it. Slope. Learn slope. How many of you are doing Science 10 right now? How many of you are doing Physics in Science 10 right now? Is slope part of that? Damn straight it is. How many of you are doing social studies? Are there graphs in social studies? There will be. When you have a graph and you need to know things about it, slope comes into that. Chemistry, slope. Biology, slope. Math, slope. Is slope an important concept to get into your brains to get through school? Yes. Are there going to be graphs that you may need to read in the rest of your life? Yeah, there is. Learn what slope means. Next page. Or next question, I mean. Is that a right triangle? If it's a right triangle, then one of the angles must be what? 90, which means 2 of those sides meet perpendicularly, don't they? Which means 2 of those slopes must be perpendicular to each other, right? How many corners are in a triangle? 3. So if we were going to do this, we would need to check how many slopes. 3. But can we make it easier on ourselves? Sure we can. Because only one of those corners is going to be 90, isn't it? So if I sketch this graph, will that help me decide which slopes to check? Let's see, shall we? Where's the first point? -3, 1. Where's that? He waited patiently. Pardon me? 3 to the left. 1, 2, 3, and 1 up. There is A. Everyone agree? Where's B? He waited patiently. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and down 1, 2. There's B. Everybody agree? Great. Where's C? 3, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, up. There's C. Now I can connect them. What is the only one of those 3 that may be 90 degrees? It's right there, yes? So, do I need to care about this slope and this slope? No. Do I need to care about this slope and this slope? No. I only need to check the slope of AC and the slope of which other one? BC. Right? So how do I check the slope of AC? What am I going to use? I'm going to do this one in green. What is the slope of AC? Which Y's and X's do I use? And who decides which one is Y2 and Y1? And X2 and X1? You guys. So somebody tell me a Y1. Or a Y2, I don't care. You're going to make 1 Y1. What does that make Y2? 4. Which makes 3 X2 and -3 X1. So we check the slope. Y2, 4 minus 1 over X2, 3 minus -3, which is 3 over 6, which is 1/2. Yes? Everyone agree? Okay, now, if these are perpendicular, what is this guy's slope going to be? -2 over 1, which would be -2, right? We'll do this guy in gray. So, BC, slope of BC, Y2, Y2. Or, sorry, not Y2, you idiot. Since I've already labeled these guys Y2 and X2, what would be smart to label these guys? Y1 and X1. So, 4 minus -2 over 3 minus 6, correct? Right? Okay. What's 4 minus -2? 6. What's 3 minus 6? -3. 6 divided by -3 is? -2. Are they perpendicular? So is it a right angle triangle? Yes. Triangle ABC is a right triangle because M of AC equals -1 over the M of BC. Everybody cool? Yeah? All right. Let's go on to page 193. What do I have here? I have AB, when my highlighters start working. I have AB, and I have CD. What's missing? I'm missing a Y value in D, right? If they're parallel, then what must the slope of AB do to the slope of CD? What must they be if they're parallel? Equal. Do I know the slope of AB? Yeah, I do. I just got to do some math, don't I? What is it? 10 minus 5 over 7 minus 3, correct? Is everybody happy with that? Please notice I didn't label y2, y1, x2, x1. Because I've done this a million times and I can keep it straight in my head. Should you guys label those? It's not a bad idea because if you label them, it's hard to do it wrong, right? And if they're parallel, that slope would equal what? Well, don't I need to do CD first? What would CD be? A minus 2 over 1 minus 0. Now, what should I do with all that mess? Tidy it up. What is 10 minus 5? 5. What is 7 minus 3? 4 equals A minus 2 over 1. What do I get to do whenever I have fraction equals fraction? Cross multiply. So, what is 1 times 5? 5 equals, what's 4 times A? 4A minus what? 8. Absolutely correct. Now what? Isolate A. How? Add 8 to both sides. 13 equals 4A. Now what? Divide both sides by 4 to get A equals what? Now, that is kind of hard to put on a graph, yeah? What should I do with that? If I wanted to graph this, 13/4 is kind of hard to put on there. So what would I use? What would I do with 13 and 4? What do you do with every improper fraction? Turn it into a mixed numeral, which is what? 3 1/4. Now to graph that, it's super easy, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Where would the dot go? We know A is 3 1/4. So where would the dot go? As soon as all my lines show up. That's a bad 4. Where does this dot go on this graph? One to the right, and up 1, 2, 3 1/4. And where would the other dot go? Up 2, and then I could connect them. Is everybody good? Now, this bothers you guys. I know this bothers you because I've given tests on this a million times. And you come up with a fraction for that point. And then you erase all your work because you think you've done it wrong. Have we done this wrong? Did we do everything properly? We substituted in, we tidied it up, we cross-multiplied, we did grade 8 algebra. Did we do it right? So is the answer okay? Can you find the point 0, 3 1/4? Did we just find it? So did we do it right? Even though it looks weird, it's right, isn't it? Okay. That is very important in slope units. All right, now, if they're perpendicular, then m of AB, I should have changed colors. And I will in a second. If they're perpendicular, what happens to the slope? M of AB, if it's perpendicular to the M of CD, then the slopes must be negative reciprocals, right? Everyone agree? Well, we already know, what do we already know here? We know the slope of AB, don't we? What is it? 5/4, correct? Is 5/4. And we know that CD right now is A minus 2/1, correct? We already know this, don't we? Okay. But if they're perpendicular, then what has to happen to the second slope? It has to be the second slope has to be what? CD has to be what? Negative -1 over A minus 2. Does everybody see what just happened there? We had the slope if they were parallel, but I don't want a parallel slope anymore, do I? I want a perpendicular slope, which means I flip it and change the sign. So, since I already knew it, I can write it this way. Could I also write it this way? Isn't that supposed to be y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1? Isn't it? So if I'm doing perpendicular, what would happen here to do perpendicular? What would I have to do to the y's and x's? Switch them. x2 minus x1 over y2 minus y1. And the whole thing would have to be what? Negative. So what does that tell us? Perpendicular slopes, the second one looks like this. Does everybody see that? Everybody cool? So can we fix this up? What do I do when I have fraction equals fraction? Cross multiply. What's 4 times -1? -4 equals. What's 5 times A? 5A minus 10. How do I solve this? What do I do? Add 10 to both sides. 6 equals 5A. What does A equal? 6/5. Yuck, we don't like a fraction. But did we do it right? Did we do everything we were supposed to do? We wrote out the slopes, we simplified, we cross-multiplied. Then we did grade 8 algebra. All of which we know how to do, right? So even though it's a yucky answer, do we leave it? Yes. Because in real life, are we always going to get perfect numbers? No. We're going to have lots of decimals and lots of fractions in real life, aren't we? And they will still work. Everybody cool? That's it. That's today. What's the only new concept you learned? Flip it, change the sign. right? Okay, it is 8:54. I'm going to walk around and get those 2 scores from you while you guys work on 194 and 195. Gouda? Great. If you need to pee and get a drink, now's the time. Or get an orange, but I'm running out of oranges.